Europe. European. European Union.
European law.
European governments. Many Europeans oppose the changes.
Eastern Europe. The Prime Minister's stated aim of keeping Britain at the heart of Europe. British exports to Europe.
European languages.
Our European partners.
The European Commission.
He's very pro-Europe.
I paid €5 for it.
The description represents a Eurocentric view of Native Americans. She points out the Eurocentrism of the reading list.
The value of the euro against the dollar.
Prices are given in pounds and euros. He took a cookie when she wasn't looking.
She turned to look at me.
I have to go, he said, looking at his watch.
The teacher stopped and looked around to see if there were any questions. She smiled sadly, then looked away. Let's take a look at your paper and see if we can edit it so it's shorter. I've looked everywhere, but I can't find my gloves.
Did you look under the bed?
Could you help me look for my notebook? You look tired.
Do these jeans make me look fat?
I don't look much like my sister.
This car looks as if it is about to fall apart.
With all the commotion, it looked as if the circus had come to town.
Since half of the staff was laid off, we're all looking over our shoulders. We're not just looking to make money.
Politicians have looked the other way while children go hungry.
If you're looking for a good family car, look no further.
Look, there's a blue jay.
Look at me, Mommy. Look how tall he's gotten.
Look, I'm very serious about this.
Do you need help with anything? No, thanks. We're just looking.
If this rain keeps up, it looks like we'll have to cancel the picnic.
Look me in the eye and tell me you didn't take that money. Don't look now. Here comes Kristen. Now look what you've done. You'll have to clean it up.
Are you okay? You haven't been looking yourself lately.
People in the club look down their noses at people like us. Most of the rooms look south.
Who looks after the kids while you're at work?
She's old enough to look after herself.
Clayton has a manager who looks after his business interests.
The company is looking ahead to next year. We have about 3 hours to look around the museum.
I began to look around for a place to live. I haven't had a chance to look at the report yet.
You should get the doctor to look at that cut.
Wildlife experts are looking at ways to protect the animals.
The incident changed the way I looked at my parents.
Look at you. You're filthy.
Look at him, walking around as if he owns the place.
Look at Eric. He didn't go to college, and he's doing all right.
The program looks back at the events leading up to the war.
Looking back on it, I'm glad I didn't get the job. He left his acting career and never looked back.
They looked down on me because I never went to college.
Brad was looking for you last night.
How long have you been looking for a job?
Leslie, you're just the person I'm looking for. Come help me with this.
I'm really looking forward to our vacation.
We're looking forward to meeting Don.
I promised to look in on Dad.
A special investigator will look into the bank robbery. That sounds like a good idea. I'll look into it.
The crowd looked on as the two men fought.
My family looks on divorce as a sin.
Townspeople looked upon them with contempt.
Look out! You almost hit that cat.
In this region, you have to look out for snakes. My older brother always looked out for me.
My apartment window looks out on the park.
Can you look this letter over before I send it? I caught my mother looking through my stuff.
I'll look through my notes again.
I said hello to Paige, but she just looked right through me.
Cities are looking to state governments for aid.
The graduating students are looking toward the future. If you don't know the word, look it up in the dictionary.
Things are looking up for downtown businesses.
If you ever get to Nashville, look me up.
Kids need role models to look up to.
Andy said he would come later. Dad would be really mad if he knew we had borrowed his car.
If she'd asked me, I would have said yes.
Would you shut the window, please? Would you like to stay and watch a movie? The engine wouldn't start.
They wouldn't accept my apology.
I would get there early, if you can.
What would you do?
We would often go for long walks in the park.
I wish the rain would stop.
My parents would like to meet you.
I would rather stay home tonight.
I'd hate to miss anything.
The total cost, I would guess, might be $100 per person.
I would later realize that this was a mistake.
I guess she'd be about 30 now.
You would go and spoil it, you jerk.
He wouldn't say what was wrong.
I would have helped you if I'd known.
Would you like a sandwich? Would you have dinner with me on Friday? I'd love a coffee. I'd only be too glad to help. I'd hate you to think I was criticizing you. I'd rather come with you. I'd rather you came with us. He said he would be here at 8 o'clock. She asked if I would help. They told me that they probably wouldn't come. She'd look better with shorter hair. If you went to see him, he would be delighted. Hurry up. It would be a shame to miss the beginning of the play. She'd be a fool to accept it. If I had seen the advertisement in time, I would have applied for the job. They would never have met if she hadn't gone to Emma's party. She burned the letters so that her husband would never read them. She wouldn't change it even though she knew it was wrong. My car wouldn't start this morning. Would you mind leaving us alone for a few minutes? Would you open the door for me, please? I would imagine the job will take about 2 days. I'd say he was about 50. I wouldn't have any more to drink if I were you. When my parents were away, my grandmother would take care of me. He'd always be the first to offer to help. She said it was your fault.
Well, she would say that, wouldn't she? She's never liked me.
Would that he had lived to see it.
You should have called me right away.
Should I wear my gray dress?
Children shouldn't take candy from strangers. Yvonne should be back by 8 o'clock. It should be a nice day tomorrow. Should you decide to accept the offer, please return the enclosed form.
You really should see a doctor.
Children shouldn't play in the street. What should I do?
You should have called me right away.
Every sentence should start with a capital letter.
There should be 10 tickets, but there are only 9. She should pass the test easily. They should be here by 8.
There should be some milk in the refrigerator.
All passengers should have their passports ready.
What if one of us should get lost?
Should you need help, call me.
You should have seen the look on her face when I told her.
My new car is really nice.
Well, I should hope so, considering how much you paid for it.
I wasn't going to give her any extra help. I should think not, after the way she treated you last time.
Who should I meet but my old pal Frank? I should think he'd be grateful for some time off. Could you sleep last night with all that noise outside? Eleanor couldn't come to the party last weekend. I knew we couldn't win the game.
I'm sure Frances could find out for you.
You could hurt yourself if you're not careful.
I don't think I could live with someone like that.
One small spark could easily cause an explosion.
Do you think he could have forgotten?
I couldn't have been away for more than 10 minutes.
Dad said we could go swimming after lunch.
You could have been killed.
She could have come with us if she'd wanted. Could you have her call me back when she gets home, please?
Could you drop off the kids on your way to work?
It's so hot. It could be the middle of summer.
Could I have a drink of water?
What about Sam? Could he come along too?
Maybe we could meet for lunch. We could always use plastic cups instead. I couldn't care less what happens to you and Peter. You could have told me you were going to be late.
You could at least apologize.
How are you feeling? Fine. Couldn't be better.
The system couldn't be simpler. You look like you could do with a drink. Brent forgot our anniversary again. I could have killed him.
The floor is made of solid wood.
He was outside chopping wood for the fire.
He made a bench out of an old piece of wood.
Balsa is a very soft wood. There was a hand-carved wood table in the corner.
We went for a walk in the woods after lunch.
He sat at a large desk of dark, polished wood.
The pictures were in simple frames made of blonde wood.
The doors are made of solid wood. She could hear the shuffling of shoes on the bare wood floor upstairs. Oak is a hard wood.
A soft wood, like pine, is easier to work with.
The whole house is made of wood.
He was chopping wood for the fire.
A local carpenter cut the wood to size.
Using stain allows the wood grain to show, but painting hides it.
The old wood stove kept the cabin warm. There was a smell of wood smoke. The walls of the den were covered in dark wood paneling. Fisher smoked slowly over wood chips.
He cleared up the wood shavings.
Polished wood floors. The table was made from 3 different types of wood. I went for a walk in the woods. A wooden bench. Woody plants.
Put some more wood on the fire. A polished wood floor.
Her house was made of wood.
A walk in the woods.
He chopped some wood for the fire. All the furniture was made of wood. He's from your neck of the woods.
A hooded jacket.
Why don't you put your hood up if you're cold?
He was abducted by 4 men wearing hoods.
Check under the hood and see what that noise is.
She shook him by the shoulders and told him to wake up.
The accident really shook her up.
His wife shook him awake.
She shook the sand out of her shoes.
His hand shook as he signed the paper.
Do you know why? He shook his head.
She shook her head in dismay.
News of the accident shook the tiny farming community.
Tim's voice shook with emotion.
He shook out his napkin and put it in his lap.
The accident shook her up a lot.
She shook him to wake him up.
She shook the sand out of her shoes.
The car shook as it went over a bump. He shook my hand warmly. Wilkins shook hands with him. If we have a deal, let's shake on it.
The murder shook the whole town. Reggie's voice shook with rage. He shook his fist at the driver of the other car.
He shook out the handkerchief and put it back in his pocket.
I'm reading a good book.
The book is by William Faulkner.
I got him a book about photography.
She wrote a book of short stories, which was published last year.
An address book. A book of matches. They do everything strictly by the book. Have you read any good books lately?
A boy was looking at a book on castles.
I looked through the book for some pictures of birds.
She has written several books for children.
Things have changed a lot since the book was first published in 1958.
You can borrow up to 6 books from the library.
Please return all your books before the end of semester.
You can renew your books on the internet. Everyone was waiting for the next book in the series to come out.
The children's books by Roald Dahl are still very popular.
Please turn to page 53 in your history book.
The movie is based on a best-selling book. The coffee table book covers 20th century art.
I use my grandmother's recipe book.
I borrowed a few library books on George Washington. The hotel is listed in the phone book. I got it from the bookstore at the mall. The company was one of the first online booksellers.
She had a book review published in the student magazine. All the major publishers had booths at the book fair.
They have a speaker booked for next Tuesday. I've booked a room for us at the Hilton.
The flight is fully booked.
Rainey was booked on suspicion of murder.
Kevin works as a cook.
My cousin's a wonderful cook. Whoever gets home first cooks dinner.
Alice said she'd cook tonight. Cook the pasta for 10 to 12 minutes. How long does it take the stew to cook? The band is really cooking tonight.
You won't believe the plan that Larry and Jim have cooked up.
She cooked up some beans and cornbread. Cooking oil. A cooking pot. I do most of the cooking. Italian cooking. Chocolate chip cookies. Cookie cutter houses. Cooked vegetables.
A glass of milk and a cookie. Chocolate chip cookies.
You can set your browser to accept or refuse cookies. She was a smart cookie who knew what she wanted.
The rooms all have cooking facilities.
I love cooking.
My compliments on your cooking.
Indian cooking.
Simple, basic home cooking.
My mother does all the cooking.
He works as a cook in a local restaurant. Where did you learn to cook?
Cook the sauce over a low heat for 10 minutes.
I'm usually too tired to cook an evening meal.
He was cooking rice for supper.
She cooked them all a good dinner every night.
I promised I'd cook for them.
Slices of cooked ham.
A cooked breakfast.
He could smell something delicious cooking.
Hamburgers were cooking in the kitchen.
The government was cooking the books and misleading the public.
They've got something cooking and I don't think I like it.
The band's really cooking tonight.
Every night he cooked up a big casserole.
The plan that Graham and Dempster had cooked up.
The restaurant offers traditional home cooking. They serve good French cooking. What's the best way to cook? He cooked lunch for me. He cooked me lunch. While the pasta is cooking, prepare the sauce. Everyone is being very secretive. There's something cooking. His accountant had been cooking the books for years. John is a very good cook. Who was the cook? She was employed as a cook in a hotel.
My feet are aching.
We came on foot. How tall are you?
5'9". The nurse hung a chart at the foot of the bed.
We were covered from head to foot in mud. I always wanted to work in TV, but it took me 2 years to get a foot in the door. I seem to have got off on the wrong foot with the new boss. I vowed never to set foot in the place again.
Her father is footing the bill for flying lessons. Turner kicks with his left foot. We set out to explore the city on foot. If that woman ever sets foot in this house, I'm leaving. A 4-footed animal. A flat-footed man. Our sailboat's a 20-footer.
My foot hurts.
She's about 5'3". A 2-foot-long board. Our dog sleeps at the foot of the bed.
A stunningly beautiful lake at the foot of the mountain. I auditioned for a commercial and got it, and that's how I got my foot in the door.
She sounded like she had one foot in the grave.
The interview got off on the wrong foot and never got any better.
I was pleased to help get things off on the right foot.
From the beginning to the end of the book, the author never puts a foot wrong.
My foot hurts.
I'd say she's about 5'3".
A 4-foot wall.
He walked to the foot of the stairs. A small cottage at the foot of the hill.
A large wooden trunk at the foot of his bed.
The date is shown at the foot of the page.
It takes about 30 minutes on foot or 10 minutes by car.
Simon and I got off on the wrong foot, but we're good friends now. He ordered drinks and then left me to foot the bill.
Old footage from the First World War.
Which football team do you support?
Kids playing football in the street. My dad took me to watch my first football match.
A football club. The foothills of the Himalayas.
Extreme right-wing parties gained a foothold in the latest European elections.
He wanted to put their relationship on a permanent footing.
The firm started the new year on a stronger financial footing.
The new law puts women on an equal legal footing with men.
Many of the old polytechnics are now on the same footing as universities.
They managed to get the business onto a more secure footing.
The whole country was on a war footing. Seb struggled to keep his footing on the slippery path.
The girl lost her footing and fell about 150 feet.
There was an interesting footnote to the story.
We followed the footprints of a deer in the snow.
PCs with a 50% smaller footprint than other models.
Answer these questions to calculate your business's environmental footprint.
Black and white footage of the 1936 Olympics. The foothills of the Rockies. Most of all, the city needs to get on a firm financial footing. The new rules will allow candidates to compete on an equal footing. He lost his footing and fell down the stairs. A deer's footprints in the snow. He heard someone's footsteps in the hall. The dancer's fancy footwork.
The fish must have been an 8-footer at least.
The sport is gaining a foothold in Northern California. The city hopes to start the new year on a stronger financial footing. The law puts women on an equal legal footing with men.
The company's solid footing in the software market.
We were struggling to keep our footing on the icy trail.
The event is no more than an interesting historical footnote.
A computer with a footprint the size of a yogurt container.
He heard someone's footsteps in the hall.
Athletic footwear.
Government attorneys' fancy legal footwork has raised doubts about their motives.
The Communists took power in 1948. Vic took apart the faucet and put in a new washer. The Humane Society took in almost 38,000 cats and dogs last year. Once we had children, Christmas took on a different sort of importance. The couple took out a $220,000 mortgage.
Barney took us to the airport.
He took me to meet his parents.
It took a few minutes for his eyes to adjust to the dark.
Small businesses took a hammering in the last recession.
I took the first plane out.
I was joking, but he took me seriously.
Ben took the news very badly.
At first, he took no interest in the baby.
She took an overdose after a row with her boyfriend.
Reg took it upon himself to hand the press a list of names.
He took the bend at over 60 and lost control.
The police took the house apart looking for clues.
Voters took against the relationship between the government and the unions in the 1970s.
Dad took the day off to come with me.
Her face took on a fierce expression.
Roger took painting up for a while, but soon lost interest.
Rob took up the invitation to visit.
Rick took up the challenge and cycled the 250-mile route alone.
A boy took us to our room.
Her energy and talent took her to the top of her profession.
It took her 3 hours to repair her bike. She took the child in her arms and kissed him. He took some keys out of his pocket. She was playing with a knife, so I took it off her. The storms took the lives of 50 people. The rebels took him. We took a room at the hotel for 2 nights. The rebels took him prisoner.
The school took the full force of the explosion. He took the criticism surprisingly well.
She took it in the spirit in which it was intended.
She took what he said as a compliment.
Even the experts took the painting for a genuine Van Gogh. I took the man with him to be his father.
My parents always took an interest in my hobbies.
I took a dislike to him. The smell of the sea took him back to his childhood.
Reporters took down every word of his speech. He was homeless, so we took him in. She took me in completely with her story. He took in every detail of her appearance.
She took in the scene at a glance.
The plane took off an hour late.
When he saw me coming, he took off in the opposite direction.
He took off my wet boots and made me sit by the fire.
The explosion nearly took his arm off. The manager took $10 off the bill. That experience took 10 years off my life. The rebels took on the entire Roman army. His voice took on a more serious tone. The ship took on more fuel at Freetown. They took out 2 enemy bombers. It has been suggested that mammals took over from dinosaurs 65 million years ago. The director took us through the play scene by scene. The rebels took to the hills. She took to tennis as if she'd been playing all her life. I took to my new boss immediately. She took up the story where Tim had left off. I took up my position by the door. She took up his offer of a drink.
The kitchen door stood open. The house has stood empty for 20 years. Their marriage has certainly stood the test of time. The unemployment rate stood at 8% in January. People just stood by and watched him being attacked. Karen stood in for me when I was sick. In her red dress, she really stood out in the crowd. We stood up when the judge came in. My date stood me up last night.
Dad stood me up on a chair so I could see.
She stood tall and faced him.
Galileo's discovery stood medieval thought on its head. The veins stood out on his arms.
Jim stood up stiffly.
If he stood on tiptoe, he could reach the shelf.
They just stood there laughing. We stood watching the rain fall.
Smiling, she stood and closed the blinds.
She stood back to let him in.
A lamp stood on the table.
Near the railway station stood a hotel.
The kitchen door stood open, so she went in.
Countries that have stood together in times of crisis.
John stood 6 feet tall.
I knew from where I stood that the stocks were practically worthless.
Customers stood in line for 20 minutes at the cash register.
She stood firm, blocking the entrance.
Time seems to have stood still in this lovely hotel. We stood around saying goodbye for a while.
He stood by his convictions.
His wife stood by him during his years in prison.
Police stood by to arrest any violent fans.
The outlines of rooftops and chimneys stood out against the pale sky.
She always stood out in a crowd.
3 of the cars we tested stood out among the rest.
The veins stood out on his throat and temples.
The men have been stood too.
Jim stood up stiffly.
Most of the plants stood up well to the heat.
I was supposed to go to a concert with Kyle on Friday, but he stood me up.
It's time we stood up for our rights.
Savings can act as a cushion against unemployment. The law will cushion the blow for homeowners by gradually phasing in the tax increases.
He leaned back against the cushions.
Good shoes should provide a cushion when running.
A cushion of air.
The team had a 3-point cushion in the second period.
Savings can act as a cushion against unemployment. Mattresses on the ground cushioned his fall.
He made no attempt to cushion the blow of the bad news. A cushy sofa.
A velvet cushion.
A cushion cover.
Good sport shoes should provide a cushion when running. Savings can act as a cushion against unemployment.
His landing was cushioned by the fresh snow that had fallen.
Generous leaving allowances to help cushion the blow of redundancy.
Many parents try to cushion their children from the outside world.
A lightweight cushioning material.
I wish I had a nice cushy job like her.
A very cushy number.
A hovercraft rides on a cushion of air. His savings were a comfortable cushion against financial problems. The team built up a safe cushion of 2 goals in the first half. My fall was cushioned by the deep snow. The south of the country has been cushioned from the worst effects of the recession. He broke the news of my brother's death to me, making no effort to cushion the blow.
Do you take sugar in your coffee? Sugary snacks. Sugared almonds.
A cup of sugar.
A sugar-coated view of life. Sugared cereals.
Sugarless gum.
The song's sugary lyrics.
Did you sugar my coffee?
Sugary foods.
She said goodbye in a sickeningly sugary tone.
This juice contains no added sugar.
John forsook the farm for the unknown life of the city.
She forsook the glamour of the city and went to live in the wilds of Scotland.
A bunch of crooks. Crooked teeth. A crooked cop.
A petty crook.
A cat with a crook in its tail.
The picture's crooked.
Crooked teeth.
She gave a little crooked smile. A crooked cop.
The crooks got away across the park.
His lips curled into a crooked smile.
Your tie's crooked. Narrow, crooked streets.
A crooked cop.
That salesman is a real crook. Your glasses are on crooked. It's not you I'm crooked on, it's him.
Officials can act crooked.
A rose bush.
A bushy tail.
A holly bush.
Bushy eyebrows.
The child was hiding in the bushes.
Stop beating about the bush and tell me what you want.
That's Sarah's cousin. Are you sure? I'm sure that I had the keys when we left the house. I'm not sure what happened. Are you always so sure about everything? He called to make sure that we got home okay. Make sure you get there early. He's sure to say something stupid. Investing in the stock market is not a sure thing. The Giants are now sure of a place in the playoffs. I think he's married, but I don't know for sure. We'll always need teachers, that's for sure. See you Friday. Yeah, sure thing. Can I read your paper? Sure. Sure enough, we got lost. Hey, thanks for your help. Sure. It sure is hot out here. Sure, he's cute, but I'm still not interested. Surely you're not leaving so soon. This will surely result in more problems.
I think Leah lives here, but I'm not sure.
Are you sure you know how to get there? That's the man I saw last night. Are you sure about that?
There's something wrong. I'm sure of it.
He was not sure how she would respond.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this name correctly. I'm pretty sure it was John.
Are you sure you really want a divorce? I'm not sure what I want to study in college.
Don't commit yourself unless you're sure of your feelings.
I know I asked you before, but I just wanted to make sure. First, make sure that the printer has paper in it.
He's sure to get nervous and say something stupid.
Not having sex is the only sure way to avoid getting pregnant.
It's a sure bet Brian will be late.
One thing is sure, we don't have enough money to pay for this. Those black clouds are a sure sign of rain. No one knows for sure what happened. He wasn't using drugs, that's for sure.
Be sure to read all the directions carefully.
For the first time in my life, I wasn't sure of my ability.
They can be sure of a warm welcome.
Could you help lift this? Sure thing. It was difficult to be sure, but somehow we managed to finish the job.
The government is trying to get the economy back on a sure footing.
Surely he knew the money was stolen.
Such sinners will surely be punished.
That's Sarah's cousin. Are you sure?
I'm sure there's a logical explanation for all this.
My mother, I felt sure, had not met him before.
Henry wasn't sure how to answer this. They were talking about her. She was sure of that.
That's the man I saw in the building last night. Are you quite sure about that?
Did you lock the front door? I think so, but I'd better make sure.
I wanted to make sure you were all right.
First, make sure the printer has enough paper in it. I'll walk you home, just to make sure no one bothers you.
Thomas would be sorry. She would make sure of that.
Spain made sure of their place by holding Japan to a 1-1 draw.
Are you sure you really want a divorce?
Carla says she's very sure of her love for Tony.
Those black clouds are a sure sign of rain.
One thing's for sure, we'll never be able to move this furniture on our own.
He's sure to get nervous and say something stupid. There was only one sure way of finding out, and that was to visit him.
United must beat Liverpool to be sure of winning the championship.
You can be sure of one thing, there'll be a lot of laughs.
Kids nowadays seem very sure of themselves. Be sure to ring and let us know you've got back safely.
No one knows for sure what really happened.
Can you pick me up later? Sure thing. If I could get you out of there, I sure as hell would.
It sure is hot out here.
I sure hope they get there all right.
Sure, Joey's happy now, but will it last?
You must have heard about the riots, surely. There must surely be some explanation.
Surely we can't just stand back and let this happen.
The chairman's just handed in his resignation. Surely not. Such sinners will surely be punished.
Did it hurt? Sure it hurt. Boy, it sure is hot. Amazing view.
Sure is.
That song sure as hell sounds familiar. He sure looked unhappy. Thanks for the ride.
Sure, anytime.
I said he'd forget, and sure enough he did.
Surely we should do something about it.
It's surely only a matter of time before he is found, isn't it?
Surely you don't think I was responsible for this.
They're getting married.
Surely not.
They won't go, surely. He knew that if help did not arrive soon, they would surely die. We'll get there slowly but surely.
The hairdresser really butchered my hair.
He owns the butchers in the main street.
The butchery of battle.
Is there a good hotel nearby? I just read a really good book.
Terry's always been a good father to Denise.
My French is better than my Spanish. I bought the best big-screen TV I could find.
This is a good quality car.
Your work's simply not good enough. Andrea is a good cook.
Alex is very good at languages.
She's good at making friends.
Mona is good with children.
I hope we have good weather.
Have a good weekend.
We really had a good time in Mexico.
It's good to see you again.
Her new haircut looks really good. That tastes good. It feels good to lie down. Today's a good day for going to the beach. Aluminum or steel pans are best for baking.
10 o'clock is good for me.
Is this a good time to talk?
The publicity has been good for business.
That's good news.
Eating junk food all the time isn't good for you.
You don't look so good. You should go home. He'll feel better in the morning.
I feel really good about what we've accomplished.
She's in a good mood this morning. The best thing you can do is wait here.
What a good idea.
He gave me some good advice. Be a good boy and eat your vegetables.
She's the author of 5 books on good manners.
That's a good guess, but I'm a few years older than that.
I have a pretty good idea of what it will be like.
Are these batteries still good?
The car is still in pretty good shape. There. Now the table is as good as new. You have to talk into Grandma's good ear. John has very good judgment.
The warranty for my stereo is good for 1 year.
Anne's been really good about the whole thing.
Mrs. Russell has always been good to me.
It was good of her to offer us a ride home.
A good woman.
Mr. Amos lived a good life. That's my good deed for the day.
He was trying to portray himself as the good guy.
He's as good as admitted it.
The work is as good as finished.
The carpet's as good as ruined.
I'd walked a good distance that day.
A good selection of desserts. The bedrooms are all good size. They've been gone a good while.
There were a good number of empty seats.
The dog definitely needs a good bath.
Take a good look at this picture.
She comes from a very good family.
They thought she wasn't good enough for their son.
There's a good chance of rain tomorrow.
You'd better have a good explanation for being late.
Good. I'm glad that's finished.
I got an A in biology. Oh, good.
Is the answer 5? Good. That's right. Good question. I'll have to find out for you.
Good luck on your job interview tomorrow.
We're going to buy a house. Oh, that's good.
I made the team. Good for you.
It's a good thing you remembered to bring napkins.
Good grief. I forgot my keys again.
Is that okay? Yeah, good enough.
Well, I suppose this is as good a spot as any to set up camp.
You won $50,000? Boy, that's a good one. You picked up all of your toys. What a good boy.
Don't rush me. I'll call her when I'm good and ready.
Let's go watch Brent play volleyball. That'll be good for a laugh.
When are you going to pay me? All in good time. If you know what's good for you, you'll do what I tell you.
Don't worry about it, man. It's all good.
I've got my shoes on and I'm good to go.
Would you be good enough to get my glasses for me?
He's a good 10 years younger than her.
This old truck is good for another 100,000 miles. We talked for hours about the good old days.
A good many people are upset about the new gas tax. Spending an entire month at the beach was too much of a good thing.
Why is Kate going out with him? She's too good for him.
Good old Jake. I knew he'd come.
She found out he was married. I knew he was too good to be true.
They've got a good thing going with that little business of theirs.
My uncle should be good for a few bucks.
Stacy put in a good word for me at her company, so I might get a job there.
She's a good singer.
You did good.
It'll do you good to have a vacation.
For his own good, I told him he was completely wrong.
Having the tumor removed may do more harm than good.
He's too ambitious for his own good.
Drunk driving laws were made for the common good.
The food was no good.
I'm not much good at public speaking.
That pan's no good. It's too small.
This paper's no good for taking notes.
A car's not much good to me since I can't drive anymore.
How about Thursday? That's no good. I leave Wednesday. You can talk to him all you want, but I don't think it'll do any good.
It's no good trying to adjust the radio. One of the speakers is broken.
All these late nights are no good for me.
All those chemicals can't do your body any good.
Was the movie any good?
I don't know if this pie is any good.
Is next Tuesday any good?
The cost of goods and services has soared.
Fresh baked goods.
Organizers are collecting canned goods for the local homeless shelter. Imports of consumer goods have risen. A growing demand for goods and services.
She sees the good in everyone.
The battle between good and evil.
No job is perfect. You've got to take the good with the bad.
I'd like to stay in Colorado for good.
What good is money when you don't have any friends?
No one had any doubt that he would make good on his threat. Those guys look like they're up to no good.
He made good as a reporter in New York.
He promised so much but couldn't deliver the goods.
If further improvements can be made, that would be all to the good.
Face it, they've got the goods on you. Listen to me good.
My goodness, this house is big.
For goodness sake, be quiet.
Goodness knows we don't need any more trouble. Anne believes in the basic goodness of all people. The crunchy goodness of an apple.
The principal has the goodwill and respect of the teachers.
The president's words were seen as a goodwill gesture. The changes put the company's goodwill at risk.
We brought lots of goodies for the picnic.
You could win all sorts of goodies. He had the blonde good looks of a surfer.
A tall, good-looking man.
A good-humored, intelligent woman.
Union leaders have acted in good faith during the negotiations.
A good faith effort.
My goodness, you've lost a lot of weight. For goodness sake, will you be quiet? Anne believed in the basic goodness of people. It'll do you good to take a vacation. It's for your own no good trying to explain it to her. She won't listen. Take your medicine. It's for your own good. It's no good trying to explain it to her. She won't listen. That movie isn't any good. What good is an expensive house if you're always traveling?
Furniture and other household goods.
Lowering the tax on consumer goods would boost the economy.
I'd like to stay in Colorado for good. They're asking for more time to make good on their debts.
A story about the battle between good and evil.
The food was really good. Who's the best player on the team? His work just isn't good enough.
We had a great time at camp.
It was an excellent concert.
They did a good job. He's a good actor.
When would be a good time for us to meet?
A left hook.
The police are going to get these guys by hook or by crook.
A coat hook. I'll let you off the hook today, but don't be late again.
Hook the rope over the nail. The ads are designed to hook young people.
Jen helped me hook up the printer to my computer.
Only one strap of his overalls was hooked.
Buckets were hooked on long poles.
Ads designed to hook teenagers.
I hooked a trout.
Morris hooked his thumbs in his belt.
We first hooked up when we were playing high school basketball. Poet Levine hooked up with artist Terry Allen to produce the work.
The new TV isn't hooked up yet. The guy from the cable company is coming to hook us up to the high-speed connection. A friend helped hook her up with a specialist in the disease.
A hooked nose.
Jane got hooked on cocaine.
I saw the first show and got hooked on it.
Trailer hookups at the campsite. We searched every nook and cranny.
A shady nook.
A breakfast nook.
A rookie policeman.
He is likely to win the Rookie of the Year award.
The police at the crime scene were all rookies.
A rookie radio reporter.
Wolf. Wolf. Wolves. 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 Wolves.
Wolf. 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 Wolf.
Wolf. Wolf. Wolf.
Wolf. Wolf. Wolf.
Wolves. 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 Wolf. Wolf. Wolf.
A pack of wolves. A pack of wolves.
A wolfish grin. A wolfish grin.
I work part-time in a coffee shop just to keep the wolf from the door. I work part-time in a coffee shop just to keep the wolf from the door. A pack of wolves. A pack of wolves.
A wolfish grin. A wolfish grin.
She compared the media to a pack of ravenous wolves. A lone wolf howled under the full moon. Labor groups are often seen as the big bad wolf. She called the media ravening wolves. A story of a young boy raised by wolves. Wolves hunt in groups known as packs. We could hear wolves howling in the distance. In the silence of the night, a lone wolf howled. She heard the wind whistling through the trees and the howl of a distant wolf. It was a wolf howling at the full moon. He watched the wolf disappear into the tall grass.
Wool. Wool.
Is this coat wool? Is this coat wool? A pure wool skirt. A pure wool skirt. A pure wool skirt.
A wool skirt. A wool skirt. A wool skirt. Wool blankets. Wool blankets. Wool blankets.
Wool. Wool.
A pure wool skirt. A mix of 80% wool and 20% man-made fibers.
A ball of pink wool.
A pure wool skirt. A mix of 80% wool and 20% man-made fibers.
A ball of pink wool.
Wool. Wool.
Wool. Wool.
This scarf is 100% wool. This scarf is 100% wool.
This scarf is 100% wool. This scarf is 100% wool.
Wool. Wool. Wool.
Wool. Wool. Wool. Wool. Wool. Wool.
Woolen. Woolen. Woolen.
Woolen mittens. Woolen mittens.
He had gray, woolly hair. He had gray, woolly hair. He had gray, woolly hair.
A woolly hat. A woolly hat. A woolly hat.
A woolly hat. A woolly hat. He gave a rather woolly argument. He gave a rather woolly argument.
A woolen scarf. A woolen scarf. The woolen industry. The woolen industry. A woolen mill. A woolen mill.
Woolen. Woolen. Woolen.
Woolen. Woolen.
Woolly. Woolly. Woolly.
Woolly. Woolly.
Woolly. Woolly. Woolly. Woolen. Woolen. Woolen.
I can't wear wool, it makes me itch. The dress was made of wool. Even wool was on ration in the war. I think that this cloth is pure wool. The sheep of mine have very thick wool. I'd like to try on that blue wool coat. She stuffed her ears up with cotton wool. The carpets are made in wool and nylon. It's a very fluffy kind of wool. The blankets are made from wool and the sheets from cotton. This type of wool is woven into fabric which will make jackets. Her skillful fingers spun the wool out to a fine thread. This grade of wool can be sold at a fairly low price. A wool jacket complements the silk trousers and provides an interesting contrast in texture. The moths have eaten holes in my wool coat. These goats are specially bred for their wool. Press on the wound with a large pad of cotton wool. She put some disinfectant on a piece of cotton wool and dabbed it on her cheek. See how your cat has messed up my ball of wool. The noise was so loud that she put wads of cotton wool in her ears. He dabbed the wound on her arm gently with cotton wool. Sheep are reared over a somewhat wider range, exclusively for their wool. Band nylon wool, cotton, or a mix of the two absorb moisture better. She shivered in her wool coat, folded the paperwork, and called her sister. The principal items of export are wool, skins, and butter. Its wool was also renowned. Agricultural products, fruit and wool from the surrounding country are shipped in considerable quantities. They also make felts and a rough cloth of sheep's wool. Ewes generally have short horns, and the wool is long and very fine. Its wool end is a bit scratchy. It is the largest wool and the largest fish market of the United States. A piece of cotton wool soaked in strong carbolic acid will relieve the pain of dental caries. This is wool from the sheep raised around here on the farms. She emerged from the bathroom in flashy purple ski pants, a matching wool sweater. She tugged off her wool coat with some effort. The opportunity of utilizing the wool for textile industries has not yet been taken. Megan brought her a light wool jacket, leather gloves, hat, and scarf. Its wool was as soft as freshly washed hair. A bin full of discarded hair and cotton wool. I'm tempted to advise you to wear a wool dress and a thick winter coat, but that would be silly. The fakes are made from wool, nylon, or silk. The walls are clay blocks glued together and the insulation is sheep-pess wool. You need a good quality thick wool or quilted coat. The wool or hair of sheep, camels, goats, and rabbits is used to produce woolen yarns. Marcus has wrapped up warmly in a woolly hat. Neanderthal man was able to kill woolly mammoths and bears. This cloth has a warm woolly feel. The woolly spider monkey is the largest primate in the Americas. He had gray, woolly hair. Felt was an almost inevitable consequence of keeping woolly sheep. Woolen blankets often have fluff on them. She likes to wear woolen socks in winter. She wore a woolen scarf. Will this soap shrink woolen clothes? Jamie was snugly wrapped in a white woolen scarf.